The night sky has always looked like a canvas of silence. Stars burn, galaxies whirl, and from our place on Earth, we gaze upward with wonder. But wonder has a shadow. That shadow is suspicion. What if the stars are not only light in the distance, but eyes in the dark? What if somewhere out there, someone or something is watching us? Not with the warmth of curiosity, but with the cold patience of observation. We assume we are the watchers. Humanity builds telescopes, scans radio signals, launches probes into the abyss, desperate to know who else is out there. But turn the thought upside down. What if we are not the observers, but the observed? Imagine the unsettling possibility that while we lift our faces toward the stars, unseen lenses are already fixed on us. And unlike us, they don't need to search. They already know. History reveals how deeply this fear is etched into our minds. The oldest myths are filled with watchers, gods who live in the skies, spirits that descend from above, celestial beings who judge, protect, or punish. To ancient people, the firmament was alive, populated with eyes. Today, science has stripped away that veil, painting the cosmos as vast, silent, and indifferent. Yet even now the suspicion refuses to die, perhaps because it was never just imagination. Look closer and you'll see the pattern. Cultures that never spoke to one another told similar stories. Heavenly beings descending from the sky, teaching, interfering, sometimes even breeding with humankind. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki. The Mayans carved feathered serpents descending from the heavens. The Greeks told of gods watching from Olympus. The language differs, but the theme repeats. We are under surveillance. But here is the twist. What if these myths were not fantasy at all, but fragments of a long observation project? What if, since our first fires, we have lived beneath their gaze? Think of it like a hidden camera in a room. You don't know it's there, but it changes everything. Your freedom, your sense of control, your belief that you are alone, all collapse. Modern humans are not so different. When satellites cross our skies, when drones hover above battlefields, we are reminded of the power of observation. Watching is control. Watching is dominance. But if we can build machines to track each other, why imagine that we are the first? Advanced civilizations, if they exist, may have perfected observation long before our species even learned to write. And they would need no permission to turn their gaze upon us. Here is the disturbing question. If they watch, why do they remain silent? Silence itself is a strategy. Silence allows patience. Patience allows control. It is the perfect way to study a subject without altering its behavior. Scientists on Earth do the same. They observe tribes without contact, animals without interference, because interaction changes the experiment. Could humanity itself be the experiment? The deeper you go into the night sky, the more unsettling the silence becomes. Our telescopes capture light from galaxies billions of years away, yet all we hear is static. The famous Fermi paradox asks, if they exist, where are they? But perhaps we should rephrase it. If they exist, how are they watching? Silence may not mean absence. Silence may mean secrecy. Consider how easily we miss what is right in front of us. The military has admitted to objects in our skies that defy explanation. Lights moving against the wind, machines accelerating beyond our physics, craft diving into oceans without a splash. They appear and vanish, almost mocking our attempts to track them. The official term now is UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Governments no longer laugh at these reports. They investigate them, but no answers follow. Only hints, only questions. So here we are, beneath a night sky we thought was empty, and now the thought creeps closer. Maybe we were never alone. Maybe the silence is not a void, but a veil. And behind that veil, they are already here, already watching. Ask yourself, why do we fear being watched? Because it strips us of power. It turns us into actors on a stage, unaware of the audience. It makes us question every step, every choice. If we are being watched, the question of human freedom is no longer simple. The question of human destiny becomes something else entirely. And that leads to the first hook. What if history itself has been shaped by eyes we never saw? What if some of our great leaps forward, fire, language, technology, were not accidents of evolution, but subtle nudges from observers who never intended to reveal themselves? If that is true, then the story of humanity is not the story we think. It is not one of independence. It is one of careful, secret guidance. This is not science fiction. It is a possibility hidden inside silence. And silence has weight. If they are out there, they do not need to announce themselves. They only need to keep watching, from the shadows of the stars, from the dark side of the moon, from just beyond the limits of our instruments. They may already know our every move, our wars, our inventions, our fears. Even this moment as you listen could be one more piece of data in a cosmic archive. The question is not only, are we being watched? The real question is, why? For centuries, humanity has looked to the skies not just with wonder, but with reverence. In the stories of our ancestors, the heavens were never silent. They were alive with beings who saw, judged, and sometimes intervened. Across cultures, across oceans, the same theme repeats. Someone was watching, someone was above. The Sumerians, among the first civilizations to write their histories, carved into stone tales of the Anunnaki, powerful figures from the heavens who shaped human destiny. Their myths speak of beings who descended to Earth, not only to rule, but to observe. Was it just myth, or was it a memory of something our ancestors could not explain? Move forward to ancient Egypt. The pharaohs built temples that reached for the skies, monuments aligned with the stars. They believed their gods could see everything, guiding the lives of men. And the gods themselves, often depicted with strange forms, half human, half animal, descending in boats from the sky. Were these simply symbols of nature, or coded memories of something the Egyptians themselves could not fully describe? The Mayans drew vast lines across the earth, visible only from the heavens. The Nazca lines in Peru stretch across miles of desert, creating images so massive that no person standing on the ground could ever have seen them in full. Yet from above they form perfect shapes. Birds, monkeys, even humanoid figures. Why create art that only an eye in the sky could see? Some argue it was ritual, offerings to gods. Others whisper a different explanation. It was a message, a signal carved into earth itself, not for humans but for watchers overhead. And then there is the Bible, filled with angels descending from the heavens, fiery chariots that carry prophets away, voices that speak from above. Ezekiel's vision describes a wheel in the sky, spinning with light and fire. For centuries, scholars called it metaphor, yet modern eyes cannot help but notice the description sounds eerily like technology, a craft, a machine, something not of this earth. If watchers existed, they may not have needed to reveal themselves directly. They could inspire, guide, and manipulate from behind the curtain. A whisper in a prophet's ear, a vision to a king, a flash of light above a battlefield. The records we call mythology may be less about imagination and more about interpretation. Our ancestors may have seen real things, but lacking modern science, they called them gods. This thought lingers. What if we have mistaken observation for worship? What if the beings our ancestors revered were not divine but simply advanced? And what if they were not here to bless us but to monitor us? Ancient temples, sacred rituals, offerings to the sky, all could be the behavior of humans aware they were being watched, desperate to be seen in return. There is also the question of secrecy. If such watchers truly existed, why not simply land openly, announce themselves, and change history forever? Perhaps because open contact was never their goal. Perhaps the experiment was always observation. Like a scientist watching ants, they would learn more if the ants never realized. Silence is control. The less we know, the more authentic our behavior becomes. But if that is true, then history itself may be a record of that silent control. Civilizations rising, falling, guided by unseen eyes. And even now, as we look at the ruins of temples and the carvings of ancient myths, perhaps we are still decoding the same message. We are watching. The thought is unsettling, but also irresistible. Could it be that the great myths were never just stories? Could it be they were warnings? In the modern age, we no longer worship the sky as our ancestors did. Instead, we study it. Telescopes map galaxies, satellites orbit our planet, probes dive into the darkness between worlds. Humanity has turned the heavens into a laboratory. We think of ourselves as the watchers now, but what if this is only half the story? The Cold War gave us a new kind of sky, one filled with surveillance, satellites that could photograph entire cities from orbit, radar systems that could track missiles before they landed. The realization was simple. Whoever controls the sky controls the ground below. Watching became a weapon. Information became power. If humanity in just a few decades could transform the sky into an eye, then what might an older, more advanced civilization have done? They would not need clumsy satellites or noisy rockets. Their technology might allow them to monitor planets across light years, silently, invisibly. And if they wanted to observe Earth, they would have been able to do so long before we ever looked up. Then came the UFOs, lights darting across the night, craft moving faster than physics allows. Pilots report them, civilians capture them, governments investigate them. For decades, the response was denial, dismissal, ridicule. But now the tide is changing. The Pentagon has released declassified footage. Pilots speak openly of encounters. The objects, they say, are real. They defy explanation. They maneuver in ways no human craft can. The official term is UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. The name may have changed, but the mystery remains. Something is in our skies, and it is watching. Consider the Tic-Tac UFOs reported by US Navy pilots. Small white objects moving at impossible speeds. No wings, no exhaust. Just sudden acceleration, sudden stops, sudden disappearances. The military admits they are real, they are tracked, and they are unexplained. That is the closest a government has ever come to saying what ancient people already believed. We are being observed. But by who? By what? Skeptics argue these are experimental weapons, drones from rival nations, or malfunctions in radar. But if that were true, would the world's most powerful militaries admit they don't know? Would pilots describe them as beyond the limits of any known technology? The silence from official channels is telling. They admit the reality, but not the source. And so the question deepens. These objects are not just curiosities. They are a form of surveillance. They appear near military exercises, near nuclear sites, near sensitive zones. They watch where it matters most. That is not random. That is intelligence. Someone or something is watching strategically, which leads to a chilling thought. Perhaps they are not simply curious. Perhaps they are monitoring our progress, watching our weapons, our wars, our technologies. Maybe they are waiting for something, a moment in time when humanity reaches a threshold, when the experiment ends and the next stage begins. We may not know their identity, but one fact grows harder to deny. The watchers are not just in the past. They are here now in the present, and they are still watching. Imagine a technology so subtle it leaves no heat signature, so small it rides the cracks of our atmosphere, and so patient it learns in generations rather than days. If a civilization has mastered interstellar travel, then observation would not need to be loud. It could be quiet, invisible, and woven into the very fabric of the systems we trust. Tiny sentinels could drift through the ionosphere, orbiting devices might hide by mimicking cosmic dust, and sensors could entangle with the planet's electromagnetic field to reconstruct behavior from far away. History teaches us that in surveillance, smaller is better, harder to detect, easier to hide. Now scale that across millions of years, and the picture becomes unsettling. Evidence already hints at odd behavior in the skies, objects accelerating in ways they should not, signals blinking out of nowhere, meteors with compositions that do not fit. Cloaking could be perfect, surfaces designed to vanish against starlight, behavior masked to look like comets or space debris. The watchers might not need to land. They could have planted their instruments long ago, letting them adapt, analyze, and compress centuries of data into the smallest signals. The most disturbing idea is that observation might sometimes blur into influence. A tiny interference at the right moment, a subtle nudge here or there, could shape history without ever being noticed. And if the watchers think in millennia rather than years, then patience itself becomes a strategy. They may catalogue entire civilizations, waiting for key thresholds, nuclear fire, planetary networks, atmospheric scars. At that point, they could shift from passive watching to closer study. The reason could be curiosity, survival, or even precaution. Perhaps we are on a list, preserved, avoided, or quarantined. If so, then maybe we are already on camera, and the challenge is realizing where the frame begins. There comes a moment when watching must either turn to action or remain silent forever. For humanity, that moment might not be a dramatic date, but a threshold quietly crossed. It could be the global web of communication making us more visible than ever, or the sudden chemical change of a climate event that marks us in the cosmic record. If credible evidence of surveillance appeared tomorrow, the world would not respond as one. Some would panic, some would worship, leaders would compete for control, and conspiracies would flood every corner of society. Economies could shift, religions might rewrite themselves, and science would scramble to keep up. Beyond the politics lies a deeper wound to human dignity, the knowledge that we have been watched for centuries, maybe longer, without our consent. Yet the most dangerous reaction might be hostility, because a species that lashes out at its observers may provoke defensive responses it cannot imagine. The wiser path is humility, preparation, and open knowledge. We must invest in observation, not weapons, create frameworks for disclosure, and teach leaders how to carry the weight of revelation. Culture must prepare us too through art and story so that we respond with curiosity instead of fear. If watchers truly exist, then their presence forces us to think about who we are and who we want to be. Their gaze might humble us, reminding us of our smallness, or it could inspire us, uniting us under a larger sky. The question was never only whether we are alone. The real question is whether we are ready to be known.